Okay, let's get started. I'm Shancy, I'll be your host today, and we are going to be covering the global list, understanding it, and managing it to make your report writing faster so that you can use filters and keep things nice and organized. This is sort of a key element in HomeGauge that I feel sometimes people don't always get an opportunity to spend some time on. So it's there'll be some in-depth aspects here that typically don't get covered. So just so you know, we will be recording this. It's being recorded right now, and it will be posted on YouTube for future reference. So if anyone needs to leave early, or if something happens to your connection, or you just want to review the content later, by the end of the week, it will be posted on YouTube. So I guess everybody's logged in, so let's get started. I have my software open here on the screen, and you'll have to excuse my voice. I have a little allergies right now. I'm quite raspy, I'm realizing. So I have my software open on the screen, and I'm just going to open a template that I've kind of prepared a little bit to give you some good examples of the global list. So I'm going to come over here and select my template. If you're going to use your own template and you're looking to do some of this yourself, I'm going to advise you to make a copy of your template, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly. That's what I've done here so that I could leave the original template untouched in case I do something I don't care for later. So let me grab that. So my template is called, let's see, I think I changed it to Global List Webinar. And I'll open that. So if I wanted to name this template something else so that I could have a copy of it and kind of mess around with how I want things organized or changed, I could come up here to File and then go to Save Template As. This is just to copy the template the way it is right now. This is not the way you typically save a template change. You take some other steps to do that, and I will review that in this webinar. So you just click Save Template As, and then you would name it something else. So this might be in progress or working template or something like that. And once you got it to where you wanted it to be, you could just use it to write your reports, whatever makes you happy. I'm not going to rename it right now because I currently have it named the way I'd like it to be named. So those of you, I'm going to guess if you're in this webinar, you probably have been using HomeGauge for a little while. Not everyone knows what the global list is, so I'm going to take a few minutes to explain that. This only shows up when you have your template open. You have to have your template open in order to access the global list. And the global list is global to the components within that template. It is not global to all templates in your software. That's really important to remember, because if you make a change in one template and you expect those changes to be there when you open another template, they're not going to be there, and I don't want you to be confused. So when we use the word global, we're talking about global to the sections within this template, okay? If I go to the very top of the screen here, under template, I can access the global list. And that's under all comments, okay? So this is all the comments in the entire template, no matter where those comments are being used. So I can make changes here, and then later I can see those changes in the local lists where the comments are grabbed. I've messed with this a little bit so that I can have some uncategorized comments. So those of you who have been using HomeGauge for a while, if you go to this section in your template, you might find this uncategorized section has comments. Actually, I would be extraordinarily surprised if you have been using HomeGauge for any real length of time and you don't have anything in here. So I'll explain how that happens in just a minute. But we have these other sections. So these are just sort of like, I want you to think about the global list as sort of like a filing cabinet in your office. So if you have a filing cabinet in each drawer, it doesn't just have a bunch of stuff in it. You have manila folders in there to keep things sorted so you can find them more easily. And that's what these categories work like manila folders. So each one of these makes it easier for you to find things actually when you're writing your report, believe it or not. And some of you might not realize this as we get into managing this. So I want to point something out as we get into this. This list here is not structured the same way your template is structured. Just like you wouldn't have one drawer in your entire filing cabinet with just, I don't know, dishwasher information, you would actually probably have an appliance drawer, and then each one would have manila folders so that you could find things more easily. If you just threw all of the appliance things in one drawer, you'd never find it. Or if you just had one drawer with dishwasher things, it might only have a few things in it, but then you'd be wasting all this space, right? So I just want you to keep that in mind as we go here. So this is where all the comments live. And now we're going to go into the local list so you can see how these items communicate with each other. I'll need you to practice a little patience here because at first this is going to seem a little confusing. So if I come into my report writer, let's say to, I like to go into some of the more in-depth areas like plumbing and electrical. So here's my inspection items for electrical, and I can click on any one of these inspection items. I'm just going to double click on one. It will open the local list, right? So here are some comments that I might use for service entrance conductors, right? You might have more, you might have less, depending on how you write your reports or how long you've been using the software. Each one of these, I could actually delete them from this local list, and they would still live in that other global list because these comments don't actually live here. It's like there's just a path pointing to the global list. So someone said, hey, I think that I need the electrical service conductor's clearance from the ground is lower than 12 feet to be in this area. If I deleted this, it wouldn't show up here, but it would show up in the global list. So think of that more like, you know that the electricity doesn't actually live in the outlet in your wall. It comes from a source, and that source might be your electrical box or the pole outside or ultimately the generator. But you know that you can unhook the plug, the receptacle, but the electricity still is there somewhere. It hasn't turned off the electricity. So I want you to kind of remember this as these comments don't live here, just like the electricity wouldn't live in an outlet. There is a source where all these comments live, and that is in the global list, okay? So I can access the global list from this local list if I want to. So I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to delete this clearance from the ground right here. I just want to make a note of what I'm deleting so that I don't get into the global list and forget where I am. I'm going to say clearance outside so I don't forget. And I'm going to highlight this here, and I'm going to delete it by using this X with the T. Whenever you use an icon that has a T next to it, you're making a template change, right? And that means it's going to be a permanent change to your template when you go select that template in the future, providing you save it. So I'm going to X this, and I'm saying, yes, you'll notice it says, do you want to remove this comment? It's not saying delete this comment because ultimately the comment still lives in the global list. So now it's gone, okay? But let's say I did that by accident and I needed to get it back. I could go up here to the plus sign with the T, and it will take me to the global list. It's sort of like a shortcut directly from this area in the report, service conductors. And now I need to find that comment. I can search for it by going through these filters here. I happen to know it's in service entrance conductors, but you don't always know that. So I'm going to use this filter up here to find it so I can add it back to the list. As long as I know a couple of words that are exact in the sentence, I can find it, even if it's just one word. I'm going to go to filter, and I will say, I just observed what was in that sentence. Hopefully I got it right. Here it is. So I searched it. This could be any word that's in a comment. And it was this one, clearance from the ground. Now, when I have this highlighted right now, you'll notice because I deleted it from the only local list in the entire template where it was being used before, the global list says that this comment is not being used, which means that the global list says that there's no local list with this comment accessible in it, but I'm about to add it back, okay? I select it, I click OK, and here it is again, right? So now it's back in the list that I had it in originally. I can reorganize this list by using the up and down arrows. But now if I go back into the global list, it's going to tell me, hey, this clearance from the ground comment is actually available in the local list for service entrance conductors, just to make this point. So I'm going to search that, and let me go here, and is that it right there? Yeah. Clearance from ground. If you look right down here, now that we added it back to that local list, the global list knows that it's being used in service entrance conductors. Okay, so the point here is the comments do not live in the local list. You could go into every inspection item in your template and delete every single comment in there. And then if you wanted to, go back and grab those same exact comments without having to retype them. Now, if you delete something from the global list, it's gone forever. I mean, obviously you could go into another template and get it or retype it or do whatever, but it's gone for real. So if I went to delete this, it would actually say delete versus the other one that said remove from the list. This one would delete it. Okay. And I'm just going to close that out. All right. So I'm going to hit cancel here, and when I do that, the Save T button is going to light up because we have been messing around. I deleted the comment from the local list. That's a template change. I went back and I added it back to the local list. That's a template change. So I need to save my template now that I've done those things. Here it is up here, Save T. Those of you who've been using HomeGauge for any length of time have probably heard me say Save T a million times. Okay, so those categories in the global list, what they really are is they're filters that you can use in a local list to help you find comments more quickly. So let's look at connected devices and fixtures. This one's a pretty decent example. So I'm going to double click on this. Wow, we've got a lot of stuff in here. Now, granted, some of the smart text but we know that you get into electrical and plumbing, and these lists can get really long. And those of you who use the companion, this long list is not really conducive to finding something easily on a small screen. So using filters, which also are available on the companion, is an easier way to find something. So the filters are the categories in the global list where these comments are stored. Category filter. I don't know how many of you have ever noticed this, but on default, the list is all. It means here's all the comments that could potentially be used for connected devices and fixtures, right? But if I say, you know, I don't need all of them right now, I'm looking for something in particular. And if I've kept my global list nice and organized, I should have some category filters here. So here's outlets. Here's thermostatic fans. So when you add a comment to HomeGauge, if you add your own comment, you know that point where it asks you, what category do you want to store this comment in? It's important that you pick one. You should pick one that is either perfect or as close to your best choice as possible. You can always add categories later, but I do just want to say that it's important to make sure when you add a comment to the template that you pick a category when it prompts you. I'm going to just pick thermostatic fans here, mainly because there's not a lot of comments in that category in the global list. So we have this long list. I'm writing my report. I have a comment for thermostatic fans. I don't want to dig through this list, so I'm using this filter. Now I have 2 comments left. That's how many comments in the global list that are living in the folder called thermostatic fans. So now if I'm writing a report, especially on the HomeGauge companion, I can eliminate all those other comments that don't apply to thermostatic fans because I didn't put them in that folder in the global list. Now if I needed to go back and say, actually, let's see what we've got in outlets. Okay, here's outlets. I've got a few. I would imagine you guys even have more than this. So these filters can help you to write your report faster because you're able to find a comment more quickly, right? But you can take it a step further. You can actually fine-tune the categories in the global list even further. I don't want to say that you should get all ridiculous. There can be a category for everything, but if you're looking at outlets, for example, if if you go into your own template, let's say you had 10 different comments here. Well, if you went in there and said, you know, what would help me find a comment faster? There's outlets or receptacles, that's fine. But what if I had a category in the global list for GFCIs and I moved my comments into that folder so that when I came back to my local list, I could sort my comments or filter my comments and find the GFCI comments more quickly? You can do that. So why don't we do that from here? When you're in a local list, you can access the global list like I just showed you. But once you get into the global list, you then can add categories to that left-hand outline, and you can then move comments. So I'm going to look in this list real quickly. Let's see. I'm just going to take a picture here so that I can make sure I see which ones they are, because it's faster than notes. So let's say this guy right here, the GFCI, AFCI, and this one's non-grounded, these two right here. I want to move those in my global list to a new folder called GFCI, AFCI, so that when I need it, I can find it more easily. I'm going to use the plus sign with the T, and it's going to take me to the global list. Now it defaults to the last location where I was working if I hadn't closed my software. So for myself here, I'm just going to come to connected devices, outlets, and fixtures, or actually here's outlets. Let's just use that. So I can do one of two things. I can create a subcategory under outlets, or I can just put a new category under electrical, whatever I prefer. You won't see all of the tiers when you're using the filter. It'll just be called whatever the folder's called. The only reason you do subcategories is for your own access and organization. So I'm going to use outlets, have that highlighted, right? The very bottom of this list, we have these template modifying tools. I want to add a category under outlets, and I want to call it GFCI, AFCI. So that's the one I'm going to select. I've got outlets selected. I'm going to use the plus sign with the T at the very bottom of the column. And I'm going to call this GFCI, whoops, so that I can put anything that has to do with those in that folder right now. And then in the future, if I have other comments that would fall into that category, when I am prompted to select my category, I would have something that I like, as opposed to going, oh, HomeGauge, why don't you have that category? Well, you can create your own categories. I'll click OK. Okay, well, that's fine, except for I don't have anything in there right now, right? It's like an empty manila folder in my filing cabinet. So I'm going to go back into outlets here and find the comments that I was looking at, because I can move this over here and you can see the comments that were there. So what I want is, I've got a non-grounded GFCI. If I highlight that, I can actually see at the very bottom where this is being used in my template. So I can see that it's in connected devices, polarity and grounding, and a couple of other things. This exact comment. So if I make a change to this comment, it will change in all of these places. Okay? So I'm going to left click on this comment. I'm going to hold my mouse down with the left click, and I'm going to drag it into the GFCI, AFCI category on the left. It is not going to change anything as to where the comments are available in my template, but it will make that filter in that local list work better for me. So I moved that in there, and I'm also going to move this one, left click. I'm going to hold the mouse button down and drag it over here. You can kind of see how it won't let me do anything until I'm on a folder. Okay, now I've moved those two. I can click on this folder now and see the two comments that I have added there, right? I'm just going to click OK right now, so I can get back to my local list. That's all great. Well, now if I look at my filter, I have GFCI, AFCI as a category, because there are two comments in this list that now live in that folder in the global list, and it will help me to filter out a long list of comments, okay? I'm going to select that. There's the two comments I just moved, and if I needed to insert this into my report, I would select it, insert as one comment. This has smart text in it, so I will populate that, and now I'm done. And I have to save my template, because not only did I add a category in the global list to make my filters work better. I moved 2 comments. So all of that is template changes. That's all template changes, okay? So I'm clicking Save T. Let's see. Now, dare I ask at the moment, because I'm going to keep going, and I know this is a lot to absorb, does anyone have a question about that? So the Cliff Notes version is all the comments live in the global list. You can delete them all from every local list and get them back by going to the global list and grabbing them from each inspection item. From an inspection item, you can look at the list of comments in there and ask yourself, would better filters in this category filter help me find my comments? And if the answer is yes, you can go add those categories in your global list and then move the comments in there so that you can use the filters more effectively. And those filters do work on the HomeGauge Companion. Those of you who are sitting here going, the HomeGauge Companion, I've been using that, I didn't know it. Open your template right now on the HomeGauge Companion and go to grab a comment and go into your auto comment list. At the very tippy top, you're going to see something that says all. If you have the comments categorized in that section, you should see some filters. If you only see the word all, chances are you don't have your comments categorized very well or at all. So I don't see any questions, so I'm just going to keep going, and it is totally fine if there's no such thing as an unreasonable or stupid question. I would much rather repeat myself and make sure it's clear than to for someone to be lost later, because I know this is a little obscure, because most of the time we're just like throwing comments in our report and everything's fine, or typing, or whichever. But this is about the back end. This is about keeping things organized and tight so that over time your report writing gets faster. So when you go to add a comment, and I'm just going to go into any old place here. Okay, this is my comment. Okay, let's say this is my beautiful, elaborate, perfectly articulate comment, and I want to save this to my template. Okay, so I do what I normally do, which is I click the magic wand with the plus sign. I give it a short name, right? If I want to select the summary at this time, I can select the summary. So this comment actually can know to go to the summary when I pick it versus using column headers or having the column headers control your summary. I've selected that and clicked OK. And now when I click OK, it's going to ask me to categorize this comment. Okay, quick add. And here's my list. And I look in here and I'm like, oh, HomeGauge, I don't like any of these categories. I'm not happy with this. Well, you should pick the closest thing that would make you somewhat happy. We all can't have what we want all the time, right? We settle sometimes, but you're only settling temporarily. You can always go back in here and recategorize this comment. But for the moment, and this is what a lot of people do, they don't pick a category and they hit OK or cancel until HomeGauge lets them do what they want. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Okay, I'm just going to hit cancel. Well, it made a template change. My Save T button lit up. If I look at my global list right now, my local list rather, there's the comment, right? But you'll notice that down here under category, there's no category. It accepted the comment, and you know how you have your big drawer in your filing cabinet and you've got all of your manila folders. You know that spot in the front that's not a manila folder, you just stuff things in there because you're going to get to it eventually. That's what happened to this comment. It wound up in an uncategorized section. And I can find it here, but I wouldn't be able to find it really easily in the global list if I needed to. And it also would not show up using a filter of any kind, because the only time this comment will show up is if this category filter is on all. If I picked this other category filter, all the other comments in this list are in service entrance conductors. There they are, but you notice my comment that I added isn't there because it doesn't know how to filter a comment that's uncategorized except for to show it in all. Okay, so if you come to an inspection item and you don't have any filters below. All you have is all. That means all of those comments are living in the uncategorized section in the global list, okay? So I'm going to go and I'm going to categorize that really quickly and show you what that means. So I'm going to use the plus sign with the T. I'm going to go to the global list so I can tighten up my manila folders a little bit. And let's just say service entrance conductors. I'm just going to make a pretend category, okay, underneath here. I highlight this. I use the plus sign with the T, and I'm going to call this my test category because I'm messing around, right? Well, there's nothing in there right now. I need to go find that other comment that I just added. If I come all the way up to uncategorized, I can, well, here it is right here. Or I could have searched for it. I have just a few things in uncategorized. Many people you would find, I've seen guys with just as many as 1,000 comments in their uncategorized, just from a variety of importing things or messing around or deleting stuff. But now that I have this test category over here, I'm going to left click on this comment that says this is my comment, and I'm going to drag it down in here, test category. And there it is, right? So this could be my beautiful, eloquent comment that I'm a genius, right? I thought of the best description. And now all I have to do is click OK. Well, it doesn't look like anything changed here, except, whoops, except now I have the test category here because I took that comment out of uncategorized and I moved it into a category or a manila folder, and now I can find it more easily. Okay? So what this means for you guys or anyone who's been using HomeGauge for some time is that there's a couple of ways that you can clean up your global list, and I don't want you to feel like you have to do it all at one time. I'm from the school of either take a small window of time, let's say 15 minutes, every day after you finish writing your reports or before, whatever you're fresh-minded, however you want to, whatever your process is, and pick where you think you'll get the most bang for your buck. So let's look at some of those. I'm going to hit cancel here. I'm going to save my template. And I'm just going to use, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. So I put some comments in the uncategorized section in the global list so I could just give you an example. So those of you who've been using HomeGauge for a while, typically there's one category that wasn't in the template once upon a time. It's in there now, but we don't change your template for you, right? We only change the new templates for people starting from scratch. So I'm going to come up here to template, and I'm going to go to all comments. Now, at the very top here, we have uncategorized. What I did here was I put all of these garage comments in here because when HomeGauge, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they probably added garage to the global list categories. But if you had HomeGauge before then, there was no garage category in the global list. So I'm looking down here and I'm like, okay, why is there no garage? Granted, garage is kind of interior, but it has its own unique kind of elements that we like to consider, firewalls and different special kinds of doors and that type of thing. So maybe we want filters that work better for garage. So I'm going to click on comment categories right here, and I'm going to use the plus sign at the bottom, and I'm going to create a category called garage. And that's fine. Here it is. But you know what? I don't just want garage. I want garage doors. I want, what else do we have up here? There's probably several. We've got garage doors, we've got firewalls, we've got floors, right? There's a few things that we might want. So I'm going to come down here to garage, and I'm going to use the plus sign with the T, and I'll say, I like to put like a little bit, because sometimes a lot of these areas in the house, you might have doors interior, doors exterior. I like to put a little abbreviation before. If I'm repeating a category that might be somewhere else, I like to prefix it sort of. So garage, I'm going to do door, right? Doors, And then maybe I might say, I use the plus sign at the bottom, and I might say, I'll just say floor. Okay, so a couple of those. And I can keep going when, you know, whatever it is. Firewalls, actually that might be, walls would be a unique thing for garages, right? So I've created these, but you know what? There's nothing in there. I need to go up here to uncategorized. I'm going to scroll down a bit so I can see. Or if this list gets too long for you, you can come down here to the very bottom and you can collapse the list so that you can just open the section you need, because this list can get a little long and it's annoying. I wish that it was collapsed on default so we could look at it like this. And then there's garage. That's a little easier, right? So here's garage door. So I can left click and drag that into doors. I can even, here's doors. I can even create a subcategory under there for automatic doors or sensors or whatever. Here's a door one. And firewall, right? So I can come through here and here, these are all uncategorized. So once I put them in a category, it's going to be easier for me to find them in the local list, because otherwise I'm just scrolling through and either relying on the fact that I put the most commonly used comments at the top of the list, or I can filter them by the short name, providing you gave them a short name. Okay, so you can just come through here and organize. That's all great. Whoops. Unfortunately, you can only pick one at a time. Okay, so let's see if there's any, and obviously I could create windows if I wanted to. There's a door that's not fire rated. So what I did here was I basically went into my uncategorized section and I said, well, how did I wind up with all this stuff here? How can I keep this more organized? So I could go through that and maybe not even move the comments initially. Just look at the uncategorized section and say, what comment, what category would I have liked to have when this first was being creative? Jamie, I see you have a question. I'll be with you in just a moment. So that could inspire some comment categories, right? Or you can work directly from your local list, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So let me just check Jamie's question. Okay, Jamie's question, this is a good question. And I can give you an example of how this can be done. So Jamie wants to know if you have a comment you want to use in multiple categories. Can you click and drag the same comment to multiple categories, or does it delete it from the previous category when you move it to a new one? So in the global list, there's never a reason to have the same exact comment in any category, okay? If you have a comment you want to use in multiple inspection items, then you put that comment in once, and then you go to the inspection item and you point the inspection item to that comment. You don't control where that comment is being used from the global list. You control it from the local list. So I'm gonna answer this question for you by giving you an example, okay? Let's see. I'm just going to click OK here for the moment. I'm going to save my template. So Jamie is wanting to know if he has a comment that is going to be used in more than one place. Can he drag and drop it in the global list? No. If you drag it from one area to another category, it's just going to change the filter for that comment. It's not going to change the inspection item in which that comment is available. But if we want to, let's see, let's look at interiors. There might be an example there. I guess this is a good example, ceilings. Okay, I'm just going to write a comment in here and say, the ceiling in this is moldy. Okay, the ceiling in this location is moldy. Okay, whatever the location is, living room, dining room, whichever, right? So if that's the one I wanted to use, but then I also have like a cabana and a pool house down here. So let me add this to my list, and then I'm going to use that same comment in one of these other buildings, okay? So I'm using my plus sign with the magic wand, and I'm going to say moldy ceiling. Maybe this isn't a perfect example. If this were a summary item, I can pick the summary, right? I would say that's a summary item. Click OK. Click OK. I like to collapse this list. I find it easier. And then I'm going to come to interiors and ceiling, right? So now I put it in ceiling interiors. Great. So I saved my template. But now I also want to use that comment in another inspection item. Let's say cabana or pool house, right? Let's see, roof coverings, windows, doors. They have no ceilings in here. That'd be really great if they had a ceiling in here. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Doesn't a cabana or a pool house have a ceiling? I'm going to add a ceiling here. I'm going to go to add T up here and just say ceiling. That should be there. That's weird. And I'm going to select it. I'm going to move it up because I want it to be up here. Okay, and save my template. So here I am. I'm in ceilings for the pool house. And when I double click on ceilings, that comment isn't, did I misspell ceilings right there? I think I might have. There's no comments here, but I want that comment about the mold on the ceiling. I use my plus sign with the T, and I go into interior ceiling, and here's my comment, right? So now I've selected it. Now I'm using it in 2 locations. And I'm actually going to fix the way I spelled ceiling right there. Is that right? It doesn't look right. No, I guess it was right. My brain just doesn't look right to me. Okay, so there it is. And now I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to save my template. But you know, I don't like the way I described that. I think I should add a little bit more information. This is just to show you how this is the same comment being used here in the cabana and also here in the interiors. Here it is, right? Okay. So in here, I can now change this comment. And when I change it, it's going to change in the cabana and pool house as well, because it's only one comment. It's living in the same place in the global list, but because I use it in multiple places, if I change it here by using the wrench with the T for edit comment, because now I'm into the template change, it's going to change everywhere in the template. Moldy and slimy. How about that? Ugh. Okay, that's not spelled right because I'm a terrible speller. Is slimy a word? I would think that would be, oh, slimly, slime. Slimy doesn't have an E. That doesn't seem right. I'm a really bad speller. Okay, so now I click OK. See how it's changed it here. Okay, and I'm just going to hit cancel, save my template. And now when it didn't change in the report, okay, because I had already inserted it. Now if I go down here and I go into ceiling, it has changed the comment there because it's only one comment that's living in the global list, and 2 inspection items have been told to look to that comment to be available. Okay, so if you want a comment to be used in multiple places, you need to work from the inspection item and then bring it down into the list that way. Dragging and dropping in the global list is only going to change the filter. Okay, so if I had moved this into another category in the global list, it would show that category. If I moved it into walls for some reason, it would change it to walls here and in the other area. I hope that answers your question, Jamie. And I'm just going to hit cancel, and that's good. Okay, so back to, let me make sure I got you there. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad that sometimes that can be a little confusing. Okay, so basically, those of you who are saying, well, what do I do with my template? My template is, I've got a load of comments in the global list, in the uncategorized section. Now what? Well, I assure you that if you have a load of comments up there, you probably aren't using most of them. You can tell if you're not using a comment Let me see here. I'm just going to delete this one so we can say flashing is loose. I just want to show you what it looks like. Collapse this stinking thing. Flashing. Oh, it's still being used somewhere else. Okay, 1 second. Give me a second. I just want you to see what it looks like. Roof coverings. There it is, flashing. There it is. Okay. Okay, flashing is loose. I deleted it from the 2 inspection items in which it was available, okay? You'll notice now when I look at it, it says down here that this is an unused comment. That means that this comment is only living in the global list. It is not, no local list is being pointed to it, indicating that it might need to be used, okay? So as you look at your uncategorized comments, if you're going to go through them, if you see one that says unused, you're not using it. You can delete it if you want to. Just know that if you look at it and you're like, I know I have that comment in my template. I use that comment all the time. Chances are you entered it twice. Okay? Actually, it's a fact. If it says unused, but you look at the text and you're like, I know I have the chimney flashing is loose and needs repair, chances are you've typed it in twice and saved it to your template, and it's a duplicate. So it is perfectly fine to delete an unused comment from your global list, okay? That being said, I don't know that I would take all the time in the world to do that. I think it's more important to make better categories in your global list and then gradually move comments over, okay? And I'll show you how to do that right now. Because organizing your template, especially if you've been using the software for some time, it can be overwhelming, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to feel like you need to have everything perfect, because it didn't get like this overnight, right? It's taken a lot of time for you to add these comments to your template and then realize that you need to do some organizing. So what I typically do is I just tell people to start in a section, let's say roofing, right? And if I double click on roof coverings, I look in here and say, okay, what kind of filters do I have? If you come in here and you don't have any filters, well, then you're going to have to go into the global list in the uncategorized section and find the comments. Having a short name is a good reference because that's organized in alphabetical order, that uncategorized section. And you can just say, okay, let me just add some categories first. So let's say for a minute that we don't have these categories, that all you have is the choice called all. You can come up to the global list first. I don't want you to feel like you have to change everything. Let's just start with adding better choices. Use the plus sign with the T. And you come down to roofing and you can pretend, let's say you don't have these, you don't have gutters and you don't have roof coverings. You can add them, okay? You can just highlight roofing, use your plus sign with the T at the bottom, and add gutters or add penetrations. Under roof coverings, you can use the plus sign with the T and add flat and metal roof coverings, right? So that the next time you add a comment, you have a better choice for yourself. And you're not as like, oh, HomeGauge with your limited choices. Number one, that's going to make you moving forward have better choices in keeping things organized. Once you add a few, then you can go into your uncategorized and say, okay, do I have any comments up here that need to be moved to roofing or whatever categories you've added? So I would only do this in like 15-minute increments. Go in there, make some better categories for yourself. Okay, there's the categories. Now, do I have comments in my uncategorized section that should be moved in there? And go and find them. You can't use the filter to find them, like this little filter up here. You can't do that. You have to just click on uncategorized and look at them. Hopefully you have some short names to help you. Otherwise, you're just going to have to say, okay, I have a few comments about roofing. I'm just going to drag and drop those into the categories I've created. If you find a comment, you're like, oh, I'm going to categorize that, and you come down here and it says unused, don't bother moving it. Just delete it because it's unused, and you're now spending time organizing something that you don't even use. It's kind of like you're cleaning out your basement. You're like, oh, I'm going to keep this little bag of screws that I haven't used in so long. Meanwhile, I have a fresh pack up in my toolbox in the house. So just get rid of it, right? Don't hold on to a lousy old bag of screws. Excuse me. Okay, so my theory is work gradually. I really think pick the ones that are going to make the biggest impact for you. Most likely plumbing, electrical, those are going to be big ones. You might find quite a bit in exterior as well. Go into the global list, create some categories for yourself, and then take a few minutes to try to drag and drop out of uncategorized into those categories. If you have nothing in uncategorized, yay, but maybe you're thinking, well, I still could have better filters. So garage is that good example. So if I come up here to template and go to all comments, and I go into that garage section, and let's say doors, right? So maybe I don't want just doors. I want to talk about automatic doors or garage door openers. I can make a filter under doors that says automatic doors, and you can put all of the comments that apply to an automatic door into that category and then use that filter when you're grabbing the comments in your local list. That way it's just faster, right? So if you don't have anything in uncategorized, you might just look, all I would want you to do is look at the filters available in so look at all these. You don't have to have all these, but this is in plumbing supply, distribution, and fixtures in this template. There's loads of them in here. The water's not on, filtration, hose bib, everything, right? So if I'm on my companion, and I use these, shut off water, that's only one comment. I don't have to dig through that whole entire thing. Water's not on. It's so much faster. My throat's a little bit dry, hold on. So that being said, take it section by section. If you're the type of person who has to lock yourself in the house for the weekend and like work on this like crazy, your eyes will bleed. So I don't want you to have to suffer. Just take it step by step. Like I said, it took a long time for your template to get in this condition, or for you just to realize that there's a better way to organize things. I will tell you that there are a couple of things that I do add to the global list when I'm advising people on how to be organized. And it's just like one or two categories that I like to add. If I go to template, and I go to all comments, and I come up here to this primary category, the comment categories. That's like the main one. I typically like to add what is it called? Limitations and obstructions, okay? Because I don't care where the limitation is or the obstruction is in the house. I really don't. But if I can use that as a filter at as many places as I can, any comment in which I discover that there's a limitation or obstruction, I can throw it in that category, and when I'm looking for it, it'll work in any category that I have a comment like that. So if I highlight comment categories, plus sign with the T, okay, and I click OK. So that means in the future, if I go and add a comment like there's a lot of personal items in the garage and I can't see everything, or somebody nailed the attic scuttle shut, it's an obstruction. I don't care where it is, you know, I'm going to throw it in there so that that filter will be available to me no matter where the obstruction or the limitation occurs. You don't need to have one for the exterior and for the interior and for the attic. You don't need it, just one, right? The other thing I like to add is wood destroying organisms and pests. I don't care if it's not supposed to be living in the house, it can go in there. okay? So squirrels, bats, other varmints, insects, whichever, they can all go in that category. So if I have comment categories, and I go to the very bottom here, and I do wood destroying organisms / pests, and click OK. Goes at the very bottom, and that way if I discover something in the interior, in the attic, in the basement, in the shed, exterior, wood destroying organism signs, it can all go in there. And that way you don't have to worry about, it doesn't have to be organized by where you found it. It's just the fact that it is there on site, and in the global list, it could just go in there. You can indicate the location in which you discovered it in your sentence, or based on where you're inspecting, the area in which you're inspecting, okay? And I'm gonna click OK, and that's a template change. All right, does anyone have any questions? I'm looking. Any question really, honestly, and it doesn't have to, if it's about template changes, I'm happy to answer that. Obviously, we're not talking too much about report writing in particular, but this impacts a lot of the way you work. And if you have a question as to how I can kind of guide you on making sure you stay organized, I'm happy to answer. Because we're actually, by some miracle, and I can't believe it because I never ever finish early. I always go over by 10 or 15 minutes. Surely there's someone who's attended one of my webinars here and like, that's Shancy, she just keeps talking. So, but I guess I don't really have anything else to say. Let me look through my list and make sure. So I would say just be sure that you only move one comment at a time, and just take your time. Okay. All right. Well, this is being recorded if you want to reference it in the future. There's also like a 10-minute video on YouTube. Sorry, or on the Facebook page. That is like a really short summary of this. Okay, if we don't have any questions, my voice suddenly gave out on me. Excuse me. Oh, I'm so glad, Jeff, that you learned a few things. Solid webinar. Ooh, I love it. Thank you. It will be on YouTube by the end of the week. Thank you so much for coming. It's been my privilege to go over this topic with you. I do apologize for my voice giving out at the end. And we have a couple more webinars coming up. So keep an eye on that. One's for sample reports and the others for the HomeGauge companion. You guys have a great night.